Welcome to Mornings with Matt, personal and professional development training that connects the art of acting with critical life skills and self-mastery. Presented by the Deering Acting Studio.
Alrighty, good morning everybody and welcome to Mornings with Matt. This morning we are joined with Priya Koul, and man, I just love this woman so much. She's an amazing human being, even more amazing than I realized after she sent over her bio.
Right?
I mean, it's incredible here. I'll just mention a few things because she doesn't brag about herself ever, so I'm going to go ahead and do that for her. She's the Vice President of Engineering at an undisclosed, I won't mention the name, leading financial company. She's a leading technology strategist, and she delivers for global marketing capabilities to consumers. She is a outgoing spokesperson for women and women leaders. She is a female leader, and I really, really respect that. That's an amazing thing. And she happens to be a student here at Deering Acting Studio. So welcome, Priya.
Woo, Priya!
Thank you so much, Matt.
So talk to us about you. Where are you at right now in life? How are you feeling?
I feel fantastic, and in fact, a lot of that I owe to Deering because since I joined the studio, it has helped me a lot, and it has helped me to change things a lot. But currently, where I am, I'm very happy with my work. I live in Scottsdale, Arizona, with my family, my husband, and 2 children. I'm also an artist when I'm not working. I like to do wood murals and, make stuff with fabric and glass and wood. And I dabble into a little bit of painting as well.
That's amazing. And I should mention here this morning I'm joined by Brian Sweeney and Joey Sweeney. Say what's up, gentlemen.
Hello, Priya.
What's up?
Hey, Brian. Hi, Joey.
We also love Miss Priya. She is just the best.
And can I just say, I had no idea that you knew 7 languages. Like, that's insane.
Was that
Yes.
something that you were that was just a desire of yours to be a linguist, or did it come up through work? How did that work out?
It actually happened naturally. I grew up in India, and my dad was in the Air Force. So we got transferred every 2 to 3 years to a different state. And there in India, you have about 28 main languages, and then there are thousands of dialects. And when you go to a school, you have English as your first language, and then you have Hindi, which is the national language, which is your second language, and you have to learn the third language, which is the state language. So whether I liked it or not, at that time, I had to pick up those languages because I had to go through school. And I realized that I had developed a knack for it. And then when I went to college, I really wanted to learn that language, and I would interact with the locals. I would interact with the people in the cafeteria or people, the security guards. So I wanted to see, how to interact with them. That made me learn that language as well. So then I just realized it's interesting. And you figure out, there are certain root words that are common to so many languages, and you get to understand. So I found it very interesting. And now I'm trying to figure out Spanish a little bit. I can kind of understand it if people speak slowly, but I'm not there yet.
Okay, yeah, exciting. So you said you went to college, but did you go to college in India?
I went to college in India.
And
It's a city called Pune.
Okay.
That's where I went to college.
Is that where you met your husband?
That is where I met my husband, yes.
Tell us about your love story. I'm always interested in that.
It's very interesting, very unusual, I would say. I knew of him in college. I probably might have said hi to him, and I met him at a couple of occasions, but I didn't meet him in college. And then college was over. We went to our different cities. About a year and a half after college, we happened to be in the same location, and that's when I found out, these are our old college mates. Let's just talk to them. And then we got to be friends, and, we became really good friends. And in India, there are situations where we still have arranged marriages, and, you do talk to the groom before you meet them. And I was looking at prospective grooms. I was talking to them, figuring it out. And I'm talking to my husband, who was not my husband at that time, as a friend. I said, what do you think? What should I do? And after some time, I realized, why not him? I mean, I know him, he's a good friend, and that's how it happened.
That's amazing. So, in the Indian culture, then, is that a thing where did you add him to the lineup so your family would meet him and everything and approve?
Uh, they knew him because they knew him as my friend.
Oh,
So
okay.
he used to come to home, so they knew him. So I just had to tell them.
Hey.
That's great. I love that. Okay, cool. So we are very excited for today's episode, and I know you and I were going to be working on a speech that you were planning to give. Do you want to? Why don't you give a brief overview of what that was going to be? And I know it got either delayed or postponed because of the COVID virus, but what was the idea behind it, and where were you going to present that?
So I was going to talk about how I have used improv in engineering and in my work, because I find a lot of similarities, and obviously we'll get into that later. But this was at a conference called Grace Hopper Conference, which it's now become virtual. It's the largest women in technology conference, and I thought it would be good to share my experience, what I have learned, and how I've made the connection between these two worlds. And I wanted to share it there.
Okay, wonderful. So she presented. We were going to do some coaching together, and we were going to work on this speech here. And so she wrote out and shared with us the 6 points that she has here, and they're really awesome. So I was thinking, Priya, I could sort of run you through these. I can ask you questions about each one, and then you can sort of almost practice your presenting a little bit, but also just share your experience. But maybe before you do that, let's talk about how you found the studio and what your experience has been here and how long you've been with us.
Yeah, I actually found the studio a long time ago. My son, he's 16 right now, and I think it's about 7 or 8 years ago. He was in school, and I had realized that, he wasn't shy of stage or anything. I said, why not, give him some more, tools to help him with that, because, a lot of times kids are shy to speak in front of people. So he's not shy, and let me just use that and see if I can get him to a drama class or an acting class where he learn some more aspects of speaking. And I had enrolled him in the studio, and I would come and watch his showcase, and I would watch his sessions. And I really found the team at the studio to be very energizing, very positive, and the whole environment was so different. And it stuck with me. He attended the studio for at least, I think, a year and a half, and then, he lost interest, and he got interested in other things as kids do. Then about 3 years
What is he up to nowadays, by the way? I'm just curious.
He actually is a percussionist, and he's into drums and piano.
Oh, beautiful. Awesome. Okay, great.
And he loves to teach, so he's teaching math and he's teaching music, so he's doing good. He just finished his 10th grade.
Oh, cool. Yeah, we always love to hear the follow-up on students that because it's everybody, they find us, and then a lot of times they find another path and use the skills from here to do different things. So we always want to know how people are turning out. So
yeah, the foundation helps a lot. The foundation helps.
Okay, good. So now you're entering into the studio at this point.
Yes, and I started in 2017, and that was the time when at work I had realized that I need to be able to think on the spot. I need to be able to speak, and I generally, I have a large team, and I have to talk to them regularly. And I said, and I used to be very scared of that. And it was about a year or two that I struggled with that. I would, before I had to address people or speak at an event, I would be worried and anxious for a week before that. And I heard from somebody that, people who are good at speaking or thinking on the spot, most of them have gone through an improv class. I said, okay, maybe. And I also believe that, either I can worry about it or I have to do something about it.
Sure.
So I thought, let me just start with doing something about it. And what's the worst? There's no harm. I'm not going to lose anything. I'll just have fun while going to the improv class because I love the environment there. And let me try it out. And that was the intention of me joining the Deering studio. And since then, that first year I was actually preparing for an event and a speech, and I used the exercise and practice that we do. I realized it just didn't prepare me for public speaking. It helped me in so many other ways. And those, since the last 3 years, it's been amazing. In fact, there are days when I'm really tired and I just don't want to do anything, just get into bed. And that's the day of the class. And I go to the class and I come back refreshed. It's just amazing how it transforms me.
That's wonderful. That's so nice to hear. All right, good. So one thing I want to just mention to our audience here before we move on to Priya's speech is this idea of she had something in her life that she feared. And that in her case, it was public speaking, and it was engaging with a group, thinking on the spot. And I just love her words. She says, I could worry about it, or I could do something about it. And then for her, and I know we've seen this on the show a lot, people get so scared, just even like they show up and they sit in the parking lot. Everyone tells us they sit in the parking lot the first time and they just like, they're terrified to come in, and so if whatever that thing is that you're afraid of, the idea is going to be to go for it, like to attack it, and to make this something that you realize you can do something about it. It might take a minute, but you can do something about it. So we can use Priya here as an inspiration for doing more and better things. Okay, Priya. So let's move into this speech here. So I'm going to try to spoon feed you a little bit. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So we've got.
It's on page
all right,
2.
Here we go. So the speech is going to be basically how improv has impacted you as a businesswoman, has impacted you in the corporate culture, and just has impacted you in your life, I guess, right? Like that's sort of the idea of the speech. Okay, good. So then the first, and this is like a 6-point thing that Priya's come up with here, and it's really great. So the first one is, how has improv impacted you in the business environment or in your environment?
Yeah, and it was the whole idea about that was when we look at a situation, we look at a lot of times we start focusing on us, I'm scared or I have to do it. Or what I learned from you is get out of your head. It's not just about you, it's the whole scene. And that's how I divided this into, the first thing is the environment. The moment you get on the stage, you don't know the other person. You don't know what character they're going to play. You don't know what they're going to say. But the moment you get in there and a person has started doing space work, I just know that's what's been given to me. That I cannot tell that person stop doing it. That person has already put that out there, and that is the environment for me. And I have to accept it, because the moment in my head I say, this is not right, this is not what I had thought about, I'm going to stop the scene there and it's not going to flow. So the first idea is to accept what is there in the environment, and then you can respond to it. And then how you choose to respond to that environment will define how the whole scene moves forward. And I had connected that to my work world as well, is when you get into a situation, the first thing you can't say is, oh, this is not right. You have to first get in there, understand what that situation is, understand what the other person is trying to do, and then respond to it. There is a possibility that you can move it to the direction that you have thought it should go to, or there is a possibility you'll find a new direction which may be better. So having an open mind and accepting that, because a lot of times we try to control things that are not in our control. And then we end up fighting a different battle and wasting time on the other thing, which is not important at all.
Yeah, that's wonderful. That's really, really good advice. Okay, good. So then number 2 here we have is assumptions and preconceived notions.
Yep. This one is, we generally go in, and it's connected, because this is, we assume something is right. And in my mind, those are judgments from us of the right and wrong, and it's an opinion. There's nothing right or nothing wrong. So we have to be very clear about what our bias might be when you're talking to somebody. And in the improv world, essentially, we need to know, and we need to know what the facts are. So let's say I have a scene partner coming in, and they said, my name is Lucy and I am working at Starbucks. I can't just assume that her name is Angela and she's not working at Starbucks. So that's a new fact that was given to me, and I have to learn that new fact, and I have to believe that new fact. Going in, I cannot plan the outcome. I have to be open to what I'll receive as information, and then we build on that. So things like that, even when you're going into a meeting at work, I cannot assume what the other person is, who that person is, based on what I might have heard about them. So the whole idea is I get in there, I do my practice, I find out facts. And when I get in there, I have a point of view, I commit to that. But at the same time, I'm open to what the other person is saying. I'm open to what they bring to the table. And then maybe that comes up with a new direction, which may be best or better than both of those ideas. So it's the whole idea is, do we have the ability at that right moment to let go of our idea as the best idea and listen to somebody else's idea? If you think it's the best, can we let go of our idea? Or like in improv, as we build on something, we find out, and as you would say, we churn everything out of that idea, because when we do a yes because, we're trying to find out why is this idea the best idea, and we go to the nth level of because that's what will tell us how much value does this idea have, and that goes deep. And once we've exhausted all of those becauses, then we go to the yes and, where we see, can we build anything else on that idea? And I use that a lot when I am discussing stuff which is related to business in meetings, because that way you are not, you're not letting go of an idea before actually finding out, is it valuable or not? You go into the nth level of because, why did we come up with this idea? What is good about it? What is bad about it? What are the pros and cons? And once we've exhausted that, then we say, okay, is there something else that we can think of? That way you have the entire stuff in front of you, and you are able to then have these huge amount of facts, and you can make an informed decision.
Yeah.
So that's how I have, transposed that, the yes because and yes and, into my work life as well.
Yeah, that's wonderful. We deal with that a lot, right, Brian?
Totally. And I love, just the language right here is preparation makes a huge difference. Know your facts.
Yeah.
Matt's always in our environment over here. The first thing he'll ask me when I'm presenting a situation to him with a student or with something that's going on in class is, give me the facts. He will not make a decision until I've given him literally every single fact. And that means pull up my email, pull up the text, pull up anything that may have been out there, so that before we make any sort of decision, everything is laid out before us.
Or any response, because sometimes we do, a situation may require, it was a weird audio thing there. Sometimes a situation may require an emotional response, a big emotional response. Sometimes it would be appropriate to do that if something, really required it. It's rare, but sometimes it would. Having said that, a lot of things mask themselves as something that you should react to big and emotionally. And so rather than letting yourself do that right away, it's gather all the information as quickly as possible, but make sure you have the facts. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then for assumptions, definitely I agree with that as well. The concept of, in a business meeting, if I were to assume anything of anybody, the only one that I would actually assume is of myself, and I start from, I assume I'm wrong, or I assume that I'm at fault. Either of those two points of view I think are really good, because that opens you up to, as Priya was saying, really listening, really slowing down and saying, okay, is there a better way? Is there an idea here that I missed? Is there something where, because here's the truth, you can always find a way that you're at fault.
Yeah.
And that's if you look at it as a positive thing rather than a negative thing, it's really empowering, because then if it's your fault, then all of a sudden you can't blame anybody else, but you also have something to, you have the power to change something too.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love that, Priya. Those are great. Okay, so number 3 here on Priya's list is communication is key.
Yeah, and here is where we learned, and I'm going to do again the same thing as, have an example from what we learn in class with you and then how I transpose it. When we get into a stage with our scene partner, we don't immediately start talking. We would do space work and we have this peripheral vision to see, what this other person is doing. Is he slouching? Is he standing? That gives us the idea of what is the emotion behind this character. So listening very, very intently. And when we start a dialogue, it's not just hearing the words. It is the intention behind those words. It's how those words are being said. And I remember one of the exercises that we had done where a couple was asked to say the same sentence. And then our instructor at that time said something to them in their ear. He had given them a different backstory. And they said the same sentence again. But their expression was so different and the whole scene changed. So that's what made us realize that the intention behind any communication makes a huge difference. That, and then in communication, I can't just go on and on. I have to say something, I have to let the other person say something. And it's a back and forth, and we have to make sure both of us are engaged. Same thing goes in a meeting or when I'm talking to somebody at work. If I continue to talk and the other person is not interested, engaged, then I've lost that whole session there. And expression and making sure when you're speaking, while you're speaking, you're getting through the message that you need to. At the same time, it's about listening as well. How intently am I listening? Am I listening to the intent? Am I listening to the emotion? And it's not just words. And most of the times, I've also observed when there is silence, you sense stuff. So those instincts that you have, we need to listen to them. One thing that I really, really believe in, and especially that goes in the work environment, is a lot of times we don't listen to understand. We listen to respond. And, the moment somebody's asking a question, I'm framing an answer in my mind. That's what, and it took a lot of, I used to do that a few years ago. It took a lot of effort for me to, the moment I would start thinking of an answer, I would say, stop. I have to listen to what this person is saying first and be in the moment. And the other thing that we do is we talk to convince, because we know my idea is the best idea. Let me convince you that this is the best idea. So instead of talking to explain, we're talking to convince. So if we were to change our focus, that when we are talking, the idea is to explain and inform the other person rather than convincing them, we'll probably provide a much better explanation rather than just showing the positives of the fact that you're sharing. And on the other hand, when we are listening, if we are listening to understand, you gain a lot of information and knowledge from there rather than just sticking with your idea. Otherwise, you go into a meeting with your idea and you come back with your idea. You're not a better person after that. You haven't learned anything new. So with that as the background, I am also coaching and mentoring a lot of my team members, and I do that myself. After every meeting, I'll say, what do I know now that I didn't know 30 minutes ago? So that makes it very conscious for us to be attentive at that time.
That's wonderful. Yeah, so I'm going to talk into a couple of these points you brought up because they're so great. Brian warned me. He's like, just wait till you read Priya's
so
list, man.
good.
You're gonna love it. And I just do. And it proves how much that how smart you are really, because you've soaked in what we teach here. And I'm going to tell you right now, I'm just going to predict it. This is going to be a keynote speech that you're going to give at like a TED Talk. I believe that to be true.
This is the gist of everything that I've learned from you guys.
It's, well, it's honestly, it's the gist of my speeches too. It's perfect. I love it.
So good.
So going back to the first thing you said, which was the emotion, right? And that's so powerful because what Priya explained there is she said that there were two actors on stage and they would say a line and then the instructor would whisper something in their ear and then they'd say it again. It was totally different. Well, essentially what the instructor did was they whispered in a form of thought life. And we think we can hide our emotions, but we can't. And so it's funny because you cannot mask it. It's there. And so you
Yeah.
could say I love you to somebody, but it could be really mean and nasty. And so just knowing that ahead of time is like, hey, don't be fake. Instead, if you don't want to present a certain way, breathe through it and then make a conscious choice to be thinking about something else, because otherwise you'll be bringing in negative energy and everybody can feel it. So I love that. I think that was a really, really big one.
Can I jump on that really quick?
Yeah, please.
So with intention, this is something that I've struggled with and still continue to struggle with big time. Because sometimes I'll be in a moment and I'll hear the words and not what's underneath them, especially when I'm transitioning and in process, right? So if I'm like moving from one moment to the other. So even an example of this was in class the other day, right before adults, right? And we had a kids class that you had. And you were saying we had this plan, Priya, that we were going to do a certain exercise, and then Matt had improvised, surprise, surprise, improvised, into a different exercise for the kids. And in the moment, I had thought, because of other things that were happening in that kids class, that it didn't go well. Well, it actually did go very well, extremely well, like looking back on it. But in that moment, he mentioned switching over to do the same thing in the adults class. And I heard the words and not his energy. He was so psyched about it. And he was so full of energy and just ready to teach this concept and bring it right into the adults. And it was so right. And my immediate instinct was I heard the words and I was like, nope. And just came right in with this negativity. Because I didn't notice any of the energy that Matt was bringing in and all the positivity. All that I had was this preconceived point of view that I had from earlier, and I wasn't open at all. And so it was just a cool lesson for me that I think speaks right into exactly what you guys are saying.
Well, and I think that's why it's important too to mentor the people under you and to tend to talk with them and explain some of these concepts, because as your team understands, they will realize that they have more influence over their leaders than they realize.
Yeah.
And sometimes they think, oh, the leader, like that person, they don't have feelings, but you do, and so, you would hope that the same thing would be, bounced back and forth if everybody has the equal amount of respect across the board. So yeah, that's an interesting point, Brian, for sure. The other thing I love that you said was the idea of listening to understand rather than listening to come up with your own answer. Mm-hmm. And another little trick for that, Priya, in order to help you with that mind thing, is while you're listening, be listening for little gems that you can ask follow-up questions on.
Okay.
So you basically, your first response can be a clarification question. So let's say someone's been talking for a couple minutes and you're listening and you grabbed something in the first minute. They might finish talking and then you could say, going back to what you said here, what did you mean by this? So you're really listening to understand, listening to get all those facts, and then you can really come back with something very clear. And a lot of times the answer is going to be, great, you're right, move forward, and that would simplify like the interaction and the communication quite a bit. But I love that too. And then let's see, what was the other thing? Listen, yeah, I think that was it. Yeah, so yeah, wonderful. Okay, so number 4 we have is building the scene. Is the number 4 point.
Yeah, and this one essentially is when you get on stage with your partner, you don't know what's going to happen. And it's connected to the first one where we talked about the environment. We just go in there thinking that, I'm going to play this character, and then suddenly your scene partner it's in a totally different environment, and you no longer can play that character. So the whole idea is remaining open to what you will discover through that, rather than going with, no, I had planned to be this person and I'm going to be this person. That's not going to take it anywhere. So the whole idea is the moment you step in there, drop everything and focus on what's happening, and you never know where it will go. So you have to try and be open to trying that. What's the worst that will happen? It will probably go in a different direction, and you can pivot from there, and you can go, you can just retrace and go to a different direction. So course correction is not a wrong thing. As long as you realize that, this may not be the right direction that we're moving in, It's okay to try it out and then not fear it, or not think of it as a failure, because it's trial. And I think unless and until you try new things, unless and until you are not risk averse, you won't innovate. And when you take it to the work world, it's this whole concept of discovery, that you have to try it out. You have to try out small pieces. We call it a proof of concept. And what's the worst that'll happen? It'll not work. And we'll know at least, yeah, this thing doesn't work. Let's try something else.
Yeah.
And that's where, I call it, it's very magical, because you are not hampering your growth by thinking of everything that can go wrong. There's this whole there's this quote about the optimist built the airplane and the pessimist built the parachute. So if the optimist thought that, I'm going to crash, they would have never built the airplane. So the whole idea is you have to try and you have to figure it out. And even if it is not successful at that point in time, it's still success as a trial, because now that won't work, and you will not waste time and energy on that. And the other thing is, when you're building the scheme together, sometimes you will see there is disagreement, and it's okay. As long as you're not, how you teach us, sometimes denial is not denial. When you say no, it may not be denial, you're still building the scene. Right. So I really like the fact that you are disagreeing with the fact, but the scene is still going on.
Yeah.
So that was something that I brought back to work, that as long as you're accepting the premise and you're building on it, a no doesn't always mean denial. And disagreement in agreement is a thing, and that's how you'll learn, and you'll learn new concepts and build on that.
I love that. That actually goes right back to what Brian was saying too, about that instance that him and I had. Because what's interesting is I never mind critique. I seek it out. I beg for it. I'm like, please tell me how we can get better. Like, I'm all about that. So if we go into that circumstance, the idea being, you could deny, like, hey, did you think that was a great class, or do you think we should do this thing in the adults, right? You could say no, but you could have built on the energy.
Yeah.
And so you could actually, like, that's the idea of saying, like, I'm saying yes to the premise. I've heard where we are, and I can build on that. I may disagree, but I'm not disagreeing in such a way that completely kills the scene or kills the moment or kills the energy, basically. Yeah, I think that's really cool there. You know what I'm saying, Brian?
I absolutely know what you're saying. 100%.
Yeah. And then this other idea of failure. I mean, you guys know my feeling on that, but I am just obsessed with failure. I love failure. I always want to be pushing ourselves to the brink of failure, and getting excited about the idea that there's probably something wrong. It could probably be better, because of course it could be better. Like, I look at our filmmaking and I'm like, it's great. We've really come a long way. It's awesome. And then I say, okay, but we're not Steven Spielberg yet. So there's always going to be that gap that we can try to close. And of course, Steven Spielberg is putting in more hours to become a better version of Steven Spielberg than we are right now. So he's continuing to further that gap between where we are and where he is, right? So the idea, like, could we be better? Like, if you ever think that we can't, it's a huge mistake. Like, of course we could be better. Of course there's a way. Now, we may not be able to afford it. All those things may be true, but you just don't want to think like, oh, we can't get better.
Sure.
Yeah, that's very, very cool. All right, Priya, here we go. Next one. Who you are.
Yes, this one is very important. I think authenticity is extremely important. If I were to tell you something which I don't believe in, it won't come out as convincing, and it won't be the real thing. And I don't want to remember, or, this is what I told Matt, and this is what I told Brian, and this is what I told Joey, and then it's, I'm building on something that is fake.
Yeah.
And obviously, if the foundation isn't strong, the building is going to fall. So the whole idea is, whatever you say, depending on the environment, depending on what is needed, it still has to be a part of your own true self. And that doesn't mean that it'll always be the same, because the environment is different, the people are different, the situation is different. but I think all of us have different facets to our personality. And whatever facet is relatable or required at that time, we use that. So making sure that we understand ourselves and how do we respond to each situation, that is very important. And we are our own instrument, and how do we use ourselves, our mind, in a certain situation, again, authentically. That is very, very important. And uh, that brings that, purpose to that conversation. I think that's extremely, extremely important. And I mentioned here that this is something that you teach us all the time: get out of your head. Because when we're talking, if we're thinking about things, how do I just leave everything and just let my instincts speak? As long as the facts are clear, as long as I've prepared. This also goes to the fact of making sure the reason we go to class every week is it's not that sometimes I'm not learning something new as a technique. We're practicing the same technique over and over again until it becomes muscle memory. So when I really need it, I don't have to think about it. I won't get into my head and say, what should I do or what should I react? Because I've already practiced it for so long. And that's where it has helped us. And even in the work environment, I don't hesitate being vulnerable. I don't hesitate being, I will say, this is what I feel, or this is what's going on right now, because you're human, and it's okay for others to know that you're human, and there is nothing wrong with it.
Right.
There are days that you're very peppy, energetic. There are days that you're not as much, and it's okay.
Yeah.
You shouldn't hide it. You shouldn't, camouflage it under something. So being who you are builds that trust with your scene partner, builds that trust with your team. The other thing about, getting out of your head is this whole concept of fear. I don't know if it's going to go the right way. I don't know what this other person is going to think about me. So there are so many things that people think. Knowing that everybody has this dialogue going on in their head is calming, because you're not the only person who's feeling that way. And when you realize that everybody may be thinking similar, then you let your guard down. And that's when you reveal your authentic self. And that's where the conversation then truly becomes productive.
Yeah.
So that's very helpful for me. And this also gives you an insight into what's your motivation about this conversation, this scene. And it also gets you into the discovery of finding what this other person's motivation is. And once you have that, you can actually build it off, rather than, there's nothing wrong in finding, what's a situation that will benefit everybody in this environment.
Right. I love that. We always there is always an intention behind things. Always, and there's an outcome. Everybody's trying to find ways to better, right? So it's not surprising if I do business with somebody that they're trying to make money. Like, I shouldn't be surprised by that. Mm-hmm. At the same time, I only want to do business with people that are authentic, with people that have a teacher's heart, which you mentioned earlier, like somebody who's willing to teach. That's who I want to do. Like, I would never, for instance, work with a financial planner who was somebody who wasn't a teacher, because I want to learn and then be able to trust based on what I know. I don't want to just be told this is the way to do it, So that's a big deal. I was also thinking when it came to our authentic selves, how powerful that is, because if you're like you said, if you're in different environments, you're talking to different people. Like, let's say for us, I might, in a span of 3 hours, I may deliver a slightly different message to a group of kids that I would to a group of teenagers, that I would to a group of adults, that I would to my team here.
Yep.
Having said that, the core message should be the same.
Yes.
When you break it down and say, oh, this is kids speak for the same thing I was already saying. This is my team speak for the same thing that I believe in. That's the difference. So if you're saying one thing to one group and another thing to another group, that's really bad, and you gotta check yourself in that area. And I also think too, like, I liked what you said about you're allowed to feel, because I totally believe that. At the same time, there's the secret of being able to transmute your feelings, but only by being authentic, only by being honest, only by bringing it up can that happen. So for instance, just yesterday I talked about that 2 days ago I was feeling really fearful before our class. And the reason was I just saw on the news the spike of the coming back of the COVID, and I was starting to have the PTSD of closing the studio again and like all that stuff, and it was just kind of like was getting to me. And so I reached out to Joey, who was very helpful. I reached out to my wife, who was very helpful, and I even reached out to my dad, who is 100% one of the type of people that will give you a parachute instead of trying to fly the plane. But the point was bringing it up and saying it out loud and acknowledging that it was true helped me to release it. So therefore I could come into the class with a different energy and acknowledge that I was feeling that way, but I don't have to feel that way anymore. And this also goes into this idea too. I believe that a lot of times we lie to ourselves. So we'll tell ourselves that something is worse than it is, or like, like you said, like what harm's going to come from me public speaking? Well, really nothing, but we tell ourselves these lies that make it feel like it's bigger than it is, or worse than it is. We beat ourselves up a lot. Those are other lies that we tell to ourselves in our minds. Sometimes we even tell ourselves that we're better than we are, and so we boost up our own ego in such a way that it actually shouldn't be boosted, because then you're not going to grow in that area. So just to be very careful with your authentic self when you look in the mirror as well, because if you start to acknowledge where you are and be very cool with that place, then you can just be honest and authentic from there. And if you're willing to grow from that place, that's really, really attractive in any environment. Doesn't matter if it's your family, business, an acting class, on camera, if you're in a movie. Like, it's really, really, it's a beautiful and attractive thing for anybody to be their honest, authentic self.
Absolutely. I was literally just about to jump on that. Like, I when you come into class and you're willing to, let's take the other day, for example, and just put it out there, the room's energy changes.
Yeah.
Like, literally everyone can feel it, because so many of us are not used to that level of transparency. You use the phrase radical transparency a lot.
Yeah.
And I think it's so powerful and empowering when you do that, because it frees other people up to do the same.
Yeah.
When you're willing to do that. And like a moment ago, I talked about the class and how I spoke on the wrong energy, right? 6 months ago, 3 months ago, that wouldn't have been the case. Like, I would have been holding on to that, and it would have just been like, no, I'm not going to share that, because that would make me look bad,
right.
And there's power in admitting the failures, because not only does it release from you, but it can teach somebody else something on that teacher's heart.
Right.
And I know I used to teach a lot from just all of my perfections and all the good things, and not much from the failures. And I think there is just so much power in humanity in the failures and the truth in that.
Well, people respect you more. That's the interesting thing. Like, you think that they would not think you were great because you're not perfect, and then you realize nobody's perfect, and everyone knows that. So as soon as you admit what you've done wrong, or where you're lacking, everybody actually gains respect for you, and it's the weirdest concept. So, yeah, very cool.
Surprising, and it's amazing, because now when you've shared as you had mentioned, it's a teacher's heart. You want to make sure the reason you're sharing your mistake is, one, obviously you're being true to yourself, but also you're enabling others to learn from your mistakes rather than having them make those mistakes again.
Exactly. And then that all comes back to trust of your team. They need to trust you. You have to trust them, and in such a way that they would know why you're sharing. And you say, hey, here's why I'm sharing this, is honestly to make you better. And critiques can be the same way. Like, if you have the trust of your team, you can critique them, and they know that you're doing it from love, that you're not doing it to attack them necessarily, All right, good. So speaking of team, that brings us to our last point here, which is your scene partners, which I'm so glad you brought up. I was thinking about this. I'm like, if that's not on there, it's got to be.
This was something that I was totally not aware of ever, because, you don't hear that word outside, or at least I had not heard that word outside of my class, of my improv class. And then I realized that everybody that I talk to in work, in life, I meet at the grocery store, they are my scene partners. And, this whole conversation, and one thing that always, I'm still trying to do that. I'm still learning it. It is when you talk about having a relationship-based statement, when you talk to somebody, we don't think about this other person that, as a relation. Even if I'm at the grocery store and there is this cashier, there is a relationship there. That person is a cashier. I'm buying something. We're both in the same store. I meet this person regularly. So any conversation that happens, how can we not keep it transactional, and how can we connect while doing that? And that goes to scene partners when we are building a scene. That goes to when I'm talking to my husband or my kids at home. That goes to when I'm at work talking to my team. The moment you consider these people as your scene partners, that's when you know that you're building it together. It's not me telling you or you telling me. And so having that trust that, we are in this together, and that intention changes a lot, because the way you would say something makes a huge difference. If I were to say to my husband, are you fixing dinner? But my intention is, I don't know whether he's going to do it or not, or, should I even ask him? I have a doubt in my mind. And the conversation I have noticed the conversation changes. But if I trust that he will fix dinner, and I'm saying, are you going to fix dinner? It's very different. So that energy that goes with that, foundation of that relationship that goes with it, that I trust, we are in this together, it's going to happen. I should believe it's going to happen. That makes a huge difference. Because when you get into, and even at work, when you get into a meeting with a doubt in mind that it's not going anywhere, or this person's not going to help me, that person won't help you, because you have manifested that by thinking, and you tend to say things that will make that thing happen.
Yeah.
So you have to go in with the trust that, this person is with you, you're in it together, and you're going to build it well. So the whole aspect of not judging, relating to that person, empathizing with that person, and it's okay that knowing that this person is different than you, thinks differently than you, making yourself comfortable that it's okay to be and understand people who think differently, who express differently. And that's what will make it more fruitful, because it's not a clone of you talking to you. You need that diversity of thought. You need different ideas coming in to build something new. So that's the whole thing about, that scene partner was something that hit me really hard. And I realized that we do this every day,
Right.
Every conversation that we have. If we were to consider this person as a scene partner, it would be so much better.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I thought of a concept earlier that I didn't really mention, but going back to this idea of like the optimist or the pessimist, right? And a team. In general, everybody can grow. Everybody can adapt and gain new skills. But overall, we might have our tendencies, right? So let's say Brian might be a pessimist. He would tend to be the one that's building the parachute. Would you agree, Brian?
Yeah.
I need that person on my team.
Yeah.
So rather than judging it, rather than getting negative about it or whatever, I might say, hey, there's a better way you can present the parachute, but actually, thank you for the parachute. I'm really grateful for it. We had this conversation just the other day about the size of the stage, remember?
Yep.
And it was like, hey, the way you presented this was, it wasn't perfect, but ever since you said it, I can't stop thinking about it, and thank you because you made our studio better. Because you critiqued us, so thank you. Work on how you present the parachute, please, but keep building parachutes, because I want to know what's bad. So that's a way to embrace your team, get to know them. You can still teach them. Everybody can grow, but at the same time, embrace the thing that's weird about them, or what you might perceive as negative. Figure out how it could be positive, right?
And if they're not unique, then you don't have a complete team, and you consider this as a jigsaw puzzle, and everybody is different.
Right.
And if you had the same shape over and again, they won't gel together.
Yeah.
So that's why having those unique ideas and not dissing somebody's idea the moment it's brought up helps a lot, because you get to learn how they're thinking differently. And as you mentioned, You need the person who will build the parachute. You need the person who will build the airplane. So otherwise, it won't be a whole ecosystem together.
Right. And then your job, I think, as the leader or as anybody, is to learn how to talk to each person and be listening for hints and clues on when's the right timing, etc. I like to also, I mean, I believe in this idea of relationships so much, as you guys know, but, you know, talking to a cashier, I love that example. And I believe we should not ask, how are you or how's your day, unless we actually want to know.
Mm-hmm.
And so many people, they just do those like polite conversation starters, but they also just don't want to hear. So if I said, how's your day? And then you start actually telling me, a lot of times people get annoyed by that. And it's like, you shouldn't ask the question. You don't want to know the answer. And honestly, if you're really listening, if you're really paying attention, you wouldn't even have to ask them how their day was. You could already see it. You could already feel it. So instead of asking that question, you might say, hey, is there anything I can do for you? You know, or you know, Shay's wonderful at this. She'll find a very specific compliment to give somebody, and the compliment will change and differ on a specific day depending on the energy she's feeling. But like she builds relationships with the mailmen that deliver here, and I mean they all know her by name and she knows them, and it's like, you know, she cares. She doesn't just say, hey, thank you. She says, thank you. I really appreciate you coming in today, you know, and that makes such a huge difference when you're trying to interact with people.
Totally. This is something my dad taught to me really young, actually, was because he's in the grocery business too. And like we grew up in a very small town where kind of everybody knows each other. And it goes down to it. It's so simple. Everyone talks about it, but he taught us big time the golden rule, which is treat everybody the way you want to be treated. And if there's any big lesson above anything else that I learned from him, it was that. And then I started to just apply that places. And so like an example of that is that we joke about it, but the chop shop, like I like going there. But I try to do this everywhere. Like I try to actually engage in a conversation with whoever's there, whoever's giving me the food or whoever's doing that. And I've noticed when you do that, like you establish a relationship with those people, and then they don't just become like this number to you or this whatever.
Right.
And nobody wants to just be a number. Nobody wants to be just like a random number on a piece of paper. Everybody wants to be known and engage, and they're in wherever they're at. And so when we pay attention to that, we again are given the power to impact other people in their day and help.
And along those lines, again, compliments to you, Brian. You're very good at and intentional about learning names and repeating names. And naming is important. It's important in your scene partner work as an improviser, right? When you name somebody, it gives them an identity of sorts to live into. So if you take the time to learn someone's name, it could be the cashier, it could be whoever, it could be the person at Chop Shop, and instead of being, hey, person who serves me, it's their name. There's a big difference there.
Yeah.
And people can feel that and relate to it. Yeah, that's a great point. Okay, so the last thing I wanted to tell you, Priya, and I love this. You might be able to steal it. I don't know if you've heard this from me yet, but I really liked your example of the dinner with your husband, right? And it's like, are you gonna prepare dinner tonight? And the two ways of asking, and the same words but different tone. And I find, and I've been preaching this lately, the idea of to humble yourself and allow the other person to be your hero. So if you took that even a step further and you said the same words, but you started with like a very, like, let's say you're busy and you're stressed and all these things, right? But you stop, you slow yourself down, you walk over to your husband, you look him in the eyes so that he feels loved, he feels attractive, you give him a kiss, and then you slowly pull back and then you say, hey, is there any way you'd be willing to prepare dinner tonight? He's going to go, yep. You know, and now he gets to be your hero. So instead of saying, are you preparing dinner? It's very slightly different where you say, is there any way you'd be willing to do this? It would mean a lot to me. And you could apply the kiss to your husband to other situations with other people. Like, in what way can you make them feel good first? In what way can you acknowledge, hey, this is a favor for me. Hey, this is something that benefits the company or benefits us, and someone's going to do it. I'm willing to do it. I'm happy to do it. is there any way you'd be willing to do this? It would mean a lot. That is such a difference than, hey, do this.
That is a great example.
So yeah, make people your hero and kiss your husband. That's the. All right, good. So this has been an amazing show, Priya. Thank you so much for being on with us. I cannot say enough about you and your family and everything that you've done and accomplished. And I know that you speak very highly of us, and I appreciate that. But we really, really think highly of you as well. Mm-hmm. You're very well respected around here, and we're so happy and excited for all the successes that you have going on right now and that will be coming your way. So congratulations on all of that.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Matt. And I just wanted to express my gratitude. This class and the studio has made such a huge positive impact on my life, and I cannot thank you enough. It's really, really helped me change, and I will forever be indebted to you guys. So thank you so much.
You're very welcome. And you know what? I was going to mention, if boys are not allowed in the club, my wife, I'm sure, would be excited to do like a corporate workshop or like a show for that group of yours, that big conference, if and when you meet up again together. And, okay. So that's just an idea. And then for anybody else out there, they have a company, you've got, some corporate work that you'd like done. These concepts do translate very well to the corporate world. We talk about it quite a bit. They translate to life in general. So we would love to work with your company, love to have that opportunity to help your company communicate and take all these lessons to the next level, and you can use them week in and week out. So that's our show. Thank you so much, Priya. Let's do a quick shout out here. You can find Priya on YouTube at Priya, Priya Darshini. That is her YouTube handle. At Instagram are you just Priya on Instagram?
Yep.
Winner there. Okay, good. So, and then she's on Twitter. She is at Priya_Koul, Koul. Am I pronouncing Koul right?
Yes. Perfect.
Okay, good. I'm always worried about that. Okay, good. And so that's it. So that's Priya's handles. And for everybody else, if you would please like, subscribe, and share our channel, we would sure appreciate that. It helps us to put out this light-driven content every day, except Sunday now. We're taking Sundays off. All right. Bye, Priya. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to Mornings with Matt. Please like, subscribe, and follow us at Deering Acting Studio to keep up with the latest content. For more information on classes, private lessons, or professional development coaching, visit www.deeringstudio.com. Have a Deering day, everyone.